There are 195 countries in the world. 195 ways of seeing the world. For centuries, humanity has tried to understand which places truly deserve to be called paradise. Travelers, explorers, writers, they all tried to make a list. But no one has ever dared to do what we are about to do. We have analyzed every single country, studied every culture, explored every corner. But we didn't want to create another tourist ranking. We wanted to discover places where Earth itself decided to exceed its limits, where humans created miracles that defy imagination, where nature and culture merge, creating something that goes beyond understanding. This is the story of countries that have rewritten the meaning of the word wonder. This is the journey that will change your way of seeing the world. There is no absolute truth about beauty. There is no right or wrong way to look at the world. What we are about to show you is just the beginning of a greater journey, and it is only our humble opinion. We will begin with places that have left an indelible mark on human history, with countries that, according to millions of travelers, have defined the very concept of beauty. And our journey begins right in the heart of the Mediterranean, with one of the most beloved and visited countries in the world. Italy. In the heart of the Mediterranean Sea, this wonderful country gave birth to Western civilization, and every corner speaks of history, culture, and art. We start with Rome, the eternal city, where the majestic Colosseum still reminds us today of the deeds of gladiators and emperors. Walking through its cobblestone streets, we encounter various fountains that make us relive past times, and the magnificent Pantheon with its perfect dome. Beneath the modern city lies an underground world of catacombs where the early Christians found refuge. Moving north, we find Venice, a unique city in the world that seems to float on water. Its canals reflect splendid marble palaces, while gondolas pass under countless bridges. Here, time flows differently, among small squares and narrow alleys called calle. Florence, instead, is the cradle of the Renaissance, where great artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci left their mark. The city is dominated by the extraordinary dome of the Duomo, while the historic Ponte Vecchio crosses the Arno River, offering tourists an evocative walk among the ancient goldsmith shops that line it. In the north, the majestic Dolomites rise up, known for changing color throughout the day. Here, isolated refugees produce cheese following ancient traditions, while paths cross meadows that still preserve signs of the Great War. The jagged peaks create a magnificent scenery that attracts hikers from all over the world, both in winter and summer. Continuing on, the Amalfi Coast offers a magnificent spectacle, with its terraced lemon groves descending toward the sea. The characteristic village of Positano clings to the rock with its colored houses, as do Amalfi, Atrani, Ravello, and many other small villages. Nearby, we also find Naples, which is a city where present and past coexist. Beneath the modern streets lies an ancient underground city, while Mount Vesuvius dominates the panorama. And in the streets, the aroma of coffee mingles with the voices of nativity scene sellers. Sicily guards some of the best preserved Greek temples in the world. The imposing Mount Etna continuously shapes the landscape, while along the coast, ancient tuna fishing stations recall the history of tuna fishing. Finally, the Tuscan hills of Valdorcia form a landscape that seems painted, with characteristic cypress trees lining small whitened roads that lead to incredible medieval villages. This land is designed by vineyards and olive groves that follow the natural curves of the terrain, creating a unique spectacle. This is Italy. Not just a simple country, but a true open-air museum with over 60 UNESCO sites, where art, history, and nature create something unrepeatable. United States. The United States is a special land where wild nature meets the world's most modern cities. It's an enormous country that unites futuristic metropolises, idyllic landscapes, and a culture that has profoundly influenced today's world. New York is the city that best represents the American dream. Here, we find Wall Street, the heart of the world economy, and Times Square, with its dazzling lights and billboards that illuminate the night. Through the streets of Brooklyn, colorful murals tell stories of immigrants, while characteristic food trucks offer cuisine from around the world. Moving westward in Wyoming, Yellowstone Park shows us some of nature's most beautiful wonders. While bison stroll among the geysers, in Chicago, skyscrapers rise toward the sky. The city is famous for its music, Indeed, jazz and blues continue to play in downtown venues, carrying forward a unique musical tradition. In Arizona, the Grand Canyon tells us Earth's story through its colored rocks. Not far away, Las Vegas sparkles in the desert with its lights, fountains, and replicas of famous monuments. It's hard to believe that where immense hotels now stand, there were once only pioneers seeking refuge. Continuing on, in California, Silicon Valley is creating the future of technology. Nearby, enormous sequoias have been growing for thousands of years, while in San Francisco, characteristic cable cars climb up and down the city's steep streets. In Chinatown, traditional markets exist alongside modern tech companies. The famous Route 66 crosses the country like a long ribbon. Along the road, typical American diners serve hamburgers, while native communities keep their ancient traditions alive. In New Mexico's desert, we find important scientific laboratories, while the country's south has a musical soul. Nashville is the capital of country music, while the Mississippi gave birth to the blues. New Orleans is special with its jazz, the aroma of local sweets, and its beautiful Creole-style houses. Miami, instead, is vibrant with its Latin music and colorful buildings, while in Alaska, the land explodes into some of the world's most beautiful scenery and panoramas. The United States is a country of contrasts, where the wildest nature lives alongside the most modern innovations, mixing old and new in a unique way. Spain. At the point where Europe meets Africa, we find Spain. A land surrounded by two seas, with the Atlantic in Galicia and the Mediterranean along the Costa Brava. This country is a wonderful mix of different cultures that have left their mark over the centuries. In Barcelona, art is everywhere, with the famous Sagrada Familia Church, created by the brilliant architect Gaudi, rising toward the sky still unfinished. In the old quarter called Barrio Gótico, medieval alleys lead to hidden small squares, while at the Boqueria market you can find everything. Madrid, instead, is an always living city. In its famous Prado Museum, you can admire masterpieces by great Spanish artists like Velázquez and Goya. Plaza Mayor is always full of people, while in the La Latina neighborhood, bars serve tapas at all hours. Continuing on, Granada is famous for the Alhambra, a magnificent palace built by the Moors with splendid gardens and fountains that recreate paradise on earth. In the Albaycin quarter, courtyards explain how different cultures live together peacefully, while in Sacromonte, flamenco keeps the gypsy soul of the city alive. Toledo's like an open-air museum built on a hill, with synagogues, mosques, and churches of different religions that coexisted together. Among the Canary Islands, off the African coast, Tenerife stands tall with its Teide volcano, while in Lanzarote there are vineyards growing in ancient craters. In the Basque Country, the city of San Sebastián is famous for its excellent food, with starred restaurants and traditional venues called Choco, where they prepare pinzos, which are delicious local appetizers. Finally, we find Seville, which lives to the rhythm of flamenco. The Giralda Tower watches over the city from above, while in the Santa Cruz quarter, flower-filled courtyards hide ancient love stories, with spring making the air explode with the fragrance of orange blossoms. The uniqueness of Spain is that each region has its own language, food, and traditions. It's a place where street festivals are important moments of communal life, where in the afternoon people take siestas, and where people love to eat and chat together. Mexico. Between North and South America, we find Mexico, a country where past and present live together in a unique way. And while ancient Maya pyramids rise from the jungle, large cities grow and develop. Mexico City, the capital, rises in a valley surrounded by volcanoes. At the center of the city lies the Zócalo, the largest plaza in all of America, built above the ruins of the ancient Aztec city of Tenochtitlan. In the Tenochtitlan market, vendors offer spices and colorful crafts, while in Xochimilco's canals, colorful boats navigate just as they did in Aztec times. In Yucatan, the jungle hides ancient Maya cities. At Chichen Itza during the equinox, the sun creates a play of light on the pyramid that creates a serpent descending the stairs. In this region, you can also find cenotes, wonderful natural underground pools with clear and clean waters. Oaxaca is the heart of Mexican indigenous culture. In its markets, you can taste typical grasshoppers and admire the very colorful chilies. Women of the Zapotec tribe create beautiful colored textiles, while families produce mezcal, a famous traditional liquor. In the Great Sonoran Desert, enormous cacti dot the landscape, while eagles fly above Copper Canyon. The city of San Miguel de Allende is famous for its pink light at sunset and its beautiful Baroque-style churches, while Baja California is a long peninsula extending into the ocean. Here, gray whales come to give birth in the lagoons, while on land they produce excellent wines. Continuing on, Guanajuato is a unique city with a system of underground tunnels, colored houses that climb up the mountainsides, and the annual Cervantino Festival that fills the streets with music and theatrical performances. Along the Riviera Maya stretch beautiful white sand beaches with sea turtles coming to lay their eggs on the beach, and ancient Maya temples overlooking the Caribbean's blue sea. Guadalajara, finally, keeps Mexican traditions alive with the Plaza de los Mariachis, where traditional music always resonates, and with the production of famous tequila made from blue agave. Mexico is a place where ancient traditions continue to live alongside modernity, where food is considered sacred, and where even death is celebrated with joy. Thailand. In the heart of Southeast Asia, we find an ancient kingdom that keeps its traditions alive while opening up to the modern world. Here you can admire splendid golden temples and characteristic floating markets everywhere. Bangkok, the capital, is a city that never stops. In the Wat Phra Kayu Temple, you can find the famous Emerald Buddha, while modern skyscrapers create the city's profile around it. In the Chinatown district, the air is filled with the aromas of spices and cooking food, while on the Chao Phraya River, typical long-tail boats transport goods as they did centuries ago. At dawn, monks in their orange robes collect offerings near modern shopping centers. The north of the country, instead, is completely different. In Chiang Mai, there are 108 temples that tell the story of the ancient Lana kingdom, and in the nearby mountains live the hill tribes, who grow coffee and beautiful flowers, keeping their ancient traditions alive. In the south, beautiful islands emerge from the Andaman Sea, like Koh Phi Phi, where enormous cliffs rise from the water, and beneath the sea, colorful fish live among the corals. Continuing on, there is Ayutthaya, the ancient capital, which still preserves its ruins. Here you can see Buddha heads wrapped in tree roots, while in the night markets you can taste dishes prepared with ancient recipes. In Sukhothai, where Thai civilization was born, enormous Buddha statues smile, while in Khao Yai National Park, wild elephants walk through the rainforest, and huge waterfalls cascade down moss-covered walls. The floating market of Damno and Sarawak is always full of life, with boats loaded with tropical fruit and spices moving through the canals, while other boats prepare famous Thai dishes. Elderly ladies with straw hats row along the river, selling noodles prepared according to ancient family recipes. On the island of Koh Samui, finally, a large golden Buddha statue watches from above, while below, coconut plantations extend to the sea. Thailand is a country where a smile opens all doors, where food speaks of family and tradition, and where spirituality is part of everyday life. Australia. A country as large as a continent, where nature has created an incredible environment, home to animals found nowhere else in the world. Sydney, the most famous city, overlooks a beautiful bay, with the city's symbol being the Opera House, while the Great Harbour Bridge connects the two sides of the bay. The famous beaches of Bondi and Manly are always full of life and surfers riding the waves. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest living being on Earth, and a splendid example is found right here. Here, indeed, colorful clownfish swim among the anemones, along with enormous manta rays. The outback is the immense Australian interior, with its characteristic red earth extending as far as the eye can see. At its center lies Uluru, an enormous rock sacred to the Aboriginals, who tell their stories through ancient paintings. Here, kangaroos hop through the grasslands, while dingoes, Australian wild dogs, hunt under the stars. Melbourne, instead, is a city full of street art, with hidden alleys full of bars, while old trams carry people to distinctly different neighborhoods. The Great Ocean Road is a scenic route that follows the southern coast, and from this panorama emerge the 12 Apostles from the sea, which are large rocks surrounded by whales swimming in their cold waters. Kakadu National Park is like an open-air museum of Aboriginal art, and in its rivers we find enormous saltwater crocodiles and large birds fishing in the flooded areas. Continuing on, the Gold Coast shines with its skyscrapers reflected in the ocean, while whales rest in Rottnest Bay. Here also live the quokkas, small animals famous for always appearing to smile, having become very popular on social media. Australia is a place where every animal has a special story to tell, where the world under the sea is as beautiful as the one on land, and where isolation has created a natural environment that continues to surprise scientists worldwide. Germany. From a land of conflicts, it has transformed into a place that looks to the future, uniquely combining modern technology with ancient traditions. Berlin, the capital, is an always living city. There are still pieces of the wall that remind us when the city was divided, while today the East Side Gallery has transformed them into an open-air art gallery. In the Kreuzberg district, you can find traditional beer halls and Turkish restaurants, while the Parliament building, the Reichstag, has a glass dome that symbolizes the transparency of German politics. Munich, instead, is the heart of Bavaria, where the Oktoberfest, the famous beer festival, is held. Hamburg is the great northern city facing the sea, while the Black Forest seems to have stepped out of a fairy tale. In its wooden-built villages, you can hear cuckoo clocks, and craftsmen create wonderful timepieces. Nuremberg has maintained its beautiful medieval center, and the Christmas market fills the squares with the scents of mulled wine and ginger cookies. Dresden has been reborn after being destroyed, with its main church, the Frauenkirche, having been rebuilt stone by stone. Continuing on, along the Rhine River, you find castles and vineyards. This is perhaps one of the most beautiful areas of the country, along with Bavaria. Every river bend shows a new castle and a new village to visit. And then, there's Heidelberg, which is a university city with a medieval atmosphere. Students populate the city. Philosophers walk on the same path where great thinkers of the past walked. And the castle, with its red-colored walls, dominates the city from above. Germany is a country that doesn't forget its history, but uses it to look to the future, and where industry and traditions help progress instead of stopping it. Portugal. At the western edge of Europe, where the land meets the Atlantic Ocean, there is a nation that has played a very important role in the history of the modern world. It tells its story through stone streets, melancholic music called fado, and with an ocean that has seen its courageous navigators depart. Lisbon, the capital, is built on 7 hills. The characteristic yellow trams climb up the narrow streets, while in the oldest quarter, which is Alfama, you can listen to fado in small taverns and see the beautiful colored tiles called azulejos that decorate churches and palaces. Porto is the second city and has given its name to the famous wine. On the Douro River, typical boats still transport wine barrels, passing under the Great Dom Luis Cern Bridge, which connects the two parts of the city that look at each other across the river. Sintra instead seems to have stepped out of a romantic dream, with its palaces full of secret passages and mysterious gardens. And the Pina Palace is just a small example of this. The Algarve has a beautiful coast, with red cliffs, caves, and hidden beaches, accessible only by sea. Obidos, on the contrary, is a small town still surrounded by medieval walls, with white houses and blue trim, where they drink ginginha, which is a liqueur served in chocolate cups. Continuing on, the Azores Islands are volcanic gardens in the middle of the ocean, with lakes inside ancient craters and whales that swim following routes used for centuries. Madeira, also an Atlantic island, is another floating garden and has ancient water channels called levadas, which today are used as paths to walk through the forests. Portugal is a country where life flows more slowly, and is a place that created connections with the whole world thanks to its navigators long before globalization existed. Brazil. An enormous country that extends between the Amazon rainforest and the Atlantic Ocean, living to the rhythm of samba, jealously hiding its numerous natural wonders. Here, the cultures of 3 continents have met, creating something completely new and unique. Rio de Janeiro is a city between mountains and ocean, with the famous Christ the Redeemer statue, watching over the city from above with open arms, while the Pau de Açúcar mountain emerges from the morning mist. On Copacabana Beach, people play soccer, and in the favelas, samba schools prepare all year for carnival. The Cariocas, Rio's inhabitants, live much of their life on the street, transforming every moment into a celebration. The Amazon is the planet's green lung, with 2 great rivers, the Rio Negro and Rio Solimões, flowing side by side without mixing. Indigenous tribes protect the forest using ancient knowledge, while scientists continue to discover new animals and plants. Salvador da Bahia, instead, keeps Brazil's African soul alive, And in the upper part of the city, we find splendid Baroque churches, full of gold, while below, we hear the drums of capoeira among colorful colonial-era houses. And then there are the Iguazu Falls, where falling water creates continuous rainbows, and parrots nest in the walls of the waterfalls. The Pantanal, instead, is the world's largest wetland, where we find jaguars hunting near rivers, while large flocks of pink ibis fly in the sky. In this country, we also find a tropical paradise, which is Fernando de Noronha. These are islands in the Atlantic where sea turtles lay their eggs on the beaches, while lemon sharks swim in the clear waters. Brazil is a place where nature has created incredible spectacles, where different cultures have mixed to create new art forms, where music and dance are universal languages, and where the joy of living is a true way of thinking. Philippines. Well, over 7,000 islands scattered in the Pacific Ocean, with volcanoes, crystal clear seas, and an incredible mix of different cultures. It's a dream that has become incarnate in nature itself. We start with Palawan, a long and narrow island between two seas, whose coasts hide coves of pristine white sand, where waters merge with the horizon in endless shades of turquoise. Among the corals, sea turtles swim peacefully, while traditional bamboo wooden boats glide silently on the water. Manila, the capital, is an always living city, with churches built by the Spanish that recall 300 years of history. Through the streets pass the colorful jeepneys, which are buses decorated like works of art, while in the air mingle the aromas of local food and street food. Bohol, instead, is famous for the chocolate hills, which are 1,500 cone-shaped hills that appear covered in chocolate. And then there is Siargao, which is surfers' paradise thanks to Cloud9, a perfect wave that attracts surfers from around the world. Continuing on, Mount Mayon is famous for its perfect cone shape, while in Cebu, you can find the cross planted by Magellan. One of the most characteristic landscapes of the Philippines is undoubtedly Banaue, with its rice terraces that look like giant stairs climbing toward the sky. The Ifugao, who are the local people, cultivate these lands and keep alive ancient rituals linked to rice cultivation. Finally, we talk about Boracay, which is famous for its splendid white sand. Here, traditional boats navigate in waters so clear that you can see fish on the bottom, while fishermen take tourists to see hidden islets where seabirds live. The Philippines is a country where the cultures of Asia, Spain, and America have mixed, creating something unique. Every island has its own language and traditions, and hospitality is not a tourist service but a true way of life. Japan. Japan is a country where past, present, and future coexist in perfect harmony. Here, you can see robots serving tea during ancient ceremonies, while super-fast trains zoom past Zen temples, creating a contrast unique in its kind. The capital, Tokyo, is a city that never stops. In the Shibuya district, thousands of people cross the world's largest pedestrian crossing, while nearby, in the quiet alleys of Yanaka, it seems time has stood still. Spirituality and entertainment exist side by side. Indeed, Buddhist monks pray next to arcades full of young people. In contrast, the ancient capital, Kyoto, preserves the most precious traditions. In the famous Golden Temple, Zen gardens abound with stones and moss, while elegant geishas walk through the streets of Gion with the same grace as centuries ago. The majestic Mount Fuji dominates the landscape, and at its slopes, natural hot springs offer relaxation to tourists, while pilgrims traverse uncomfortable paths to the summit. During spring, cherry blossoms color everything pink, even if only for a few days, reminding us how fleeting beauty is. Continuing on, Osaka is instead the city of food par excellence. In the lively alleys of Dotonbori, cooks prepare the local specialty okonomiyaki on large griddles, while vendors attract customers with their calls. Hiroshima, instead, is today a symbol of rebirth. The Peace Park preserves the memory of the past, while the modern city pulses with energy. On the nearby island of Miyajima, the famous Red Gate seems to float on water, changing appearance with the tides, while deer considered sacred walk peacefully among visitors. Japan is a country where technology hasn't replaced tradition, but has merged with it, and the future is built with respect for the past. France. In the heart of Western Europe, it is a land rich in ancient vineyards and fairy tale castles, with cities that have shaped the culture of the entire world. Paris, obviously, is the true cultural center of the country. The famous Eiffel Tower rises into the sky, while the Seine River flows placidly, reflecting centuries of history. The cafes of the Saint-Germain-des-Prés quarter still preserve the atmosphere of great philosophical discussions of the past. And every morning, the aroma of fresh bread from the boulangerie awakens the city. The Louvre Museum guards incredible treasures, while the Montmartre district keeps the artistic soul alive in its characteristic alleys. Along the Loire Valley, instead, you breathe the air of French royal history. Magnificent castles are reflected in the river's waters, in cellars carved into rock rest precious wines, while in small restaurants, local chefs create extraordinary dishes with regional ingredients. And then there's Provence, a region of vivid Mediterranean colors. Its lavender fields swayed by the wind are famous worldwide. And in small villages perched on hills, artisans create ceramics following ancient techniques. Bordeaux, instead, is the world capital of wine. Its chateaux produce exceptional wines following ancient rules, and the city itself is an architectural jewel of the 18th century, with buildings that tell stories of merchants and navigators. Brittany faces the Atlantic Ocean with its impressive cliffs and lighthouses that guide fishermen, while in characteristic creperies, they prepare recipes passed down through generations. In Chamonix, in the French Alps, the majestic Mont Blanc dominates the valley. Mountaineers prepare for exciting climbs, while in mountain refuges, you can taste warm and comforting dishes. Strasbourg is a perfect mix of different cultures. Its Gothic cathedral is imposing, and in the Petite France quarter, typical houses with exposed beams are reflected in the canals. The French Riviera, finally, shines with a particular light. In Nice, the Promenade des Anglais takes us back to the Belle Époque era. And in Saint-Tropez, fishermen still sell fresh fish directly from their boats. The city of Cannes, instead, is famous for its film festival, and many artists continue to seek here the same light that inspired great masters like Matisse and Picasso. In France, cuisine is considered a cultural heritage. History isn't locked in museums but lives in the streets, and beauty is seen as a necessity. Indonesia. "17,000 islands, scattered between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. And each island has its own language, traditions, and unique landscapes, with volcanoes still fully active. The island of Bali is famous for its traditional music, played with instruments called gamelan. Temples seem to emerge from dense vegetation, while rice terraces built on hillsides descend toward the sea. The lush vegetation is home to rare orchid species, while mangrove forests protect the coastlines, creating a unique ecosystem. On the island of Java, instead, you find Borobudur, an enormous temple, built like a stone mountain and decorated with scenes from Buddha's life. Every morning, Mount Bromo emerges from the mist, while in Yogyakarta, artists create beautiful textiles, decorated using an ancient technique called batik. Another important place is Komodo Island, where the famous Komodo dragons live, which are enormous lizards, the last descendants of dinosaurs. Under the sea, large manta rays swim in ocean currents, while fishermen still live in houses built on water, just as their ancestors did. Sumatra is covered by dense forests where orangutans live, while the Molucca Islands are known for their spices. Continuing on, Raja Ampat is a paradise for sea lovers. Under the water are coral forests where fish swim that exist nowhere else in the world. In the Toraja region, people build houses that resemble ships, and funerals are such important ceremonies that they last for entire days, and tombs are created in rock, forming true cities of the dead. Indonesia is a country with an incredible variety of animals, plants, and religions. A country where different cultures meet to create unique art forms. Iceland. In the north of the Atlantic Ocean, right where two great plates of the Earth meet, an enormous natural laboratory emerges, with ice and volcanoes in the background. Speaking of ice, Vatnajökull, Europe's largest glacier, dominates the island's panorama. Under its icy surface, active volcanoes create incredible ice caves that transform each summer, while the frigid water of rivers has carved deep canyons. The capital, Reykjavik, is a unique city that harnesses the Earth's natural heat. Its houses are heated by hot water that naturally flows from underground, and often you can see the steam from thermal pools mixing with the northern lights in the sky. Route 1, the island's main road, makes a complete loop around Iceland. Along the way, You can admire spectacular waterfalls that plunge from dark rock walls, and geysers that shoot hot water jets toward the sky every few minutes. Lake Maivaten, instead, offers scenery reminiscent of the lunar surface. Solidified lava has created strange shapes, and vapors that smell of sulfur rise from the ground. The fjords in the western part of the island are like enormous inlets that penetrate the coast. Millions of puffins live on their cliffs, while orcas swim in the deep waters. The central part of the island, the highlands, is so wild that it's inaccessible for most of the year. There are vast volcanic ash deserts and active volcanoes that continue to modify the landscape. Moreover, in summer the sun never sets, while in winter darkness remains almost all day. Iceland is truly a unique place where you can see nature's forces in action. Maldives. A tropical paradise made up of 1,190 small coral islands, emerging from the blue waters of the Indian Ocean. In this magical place, land and sea merge together, and each island hides a vibrant world pulsing beneath the ocean's surface. Male, the capital, seems like a city floating on water. Walking through its narrow streets, you smell the aromas of spices mixing with sea air, while fishermen bring fresh tuna ashore in their traditional boats. The atolls, visible even from space, form perfect natural rings in the ocean. On islands inhabited by locals, ancient traditions are still kept alive, while tourist resorts float on the water. Their villas, built on stilts, create perfect geometric patterns when viewed from above, and many have glass floors under which you can see fish eating coral. In the Maldives, the sea is seen as a communication route. Protecting the environment isn't a choice, but a necessity for survival. And nature's extraordinary beauty reminds us how delicate and precious our planet's balance is. United Kingdom. Four different nations, each with its own history and culture. It's a land with ancient castles overlooking sea-beaten cliffs, great cities that have helped create the modern world, and landscapes so characteristic they have inspired writers famous worldwide. London, the capital, is a city that blends ancient and modern. The River Thames flows under the famous Tower Bridge, while Big Ben marks the city's time with its chimes. In Borough Market, you can find foods from around the world under beautiful Victorian-era buildings. While in the Camden district, young people with punk looks stroll among street food stalls. The Scottish Highlands, instead, are wild lands. Loch Ness, for example, is famous for its mysteries, and on the moors, where sheep graze freely, the wind carries the sound of bagpipes. Wales is full of castles built by the Normans in every valley. In small villages, people still speak the ancient Gaelic language and tell legends of King Arthur. Continuing on, the Giant's Causeway is a natural formation, made of hexagonal columns emerging from the sea. The Lake District, finally, is the region that inspired the Romantic poets. Its lakes reflect passing clouds in the sky, while characteristic Herdwick sheep keep ancient pastures alive. The United Kingdom is a place often shrouded in fog, rain, and mystery, but remains certainly a special country where the oldest traditions coexist peacefully with the most modern trends. Vietnam. A country that extends between mountains and sea, in the part of Asia that stretches toward the ocean. There are landscapes so beautiful they seem painted. One of these is Ha Long Bay, a magical place full of limestone islands. These rocks emerge from the water, while fishermen live in floating houses, and monkeys jump on the rocky walls covered with vegetation. Hanoi, the capital, still keeps alive the spirit of ancient Vietnam. At the city's center is the Lake of the Returned Sword, famous for its legends about sacred turtles. In the old city, each street is dedicated to a particular craft, and you can see street vendors carrying fruit baskets on their shoulders, while in the morning air spreads the aroma of pho, the famous local soup. In Sapa, rice terraces create natural stairs toward the sky. Here, the Hmong people cultivate rice following the mountain slopes, and in the morning fog makes villages appear like islands suspended among clouds. The Mekong Delta instead is full of life and water activities. At dawn, floating markets form, where hundreds of boats exchange fruits and vegetables. And all around, rice fields extend as far as the eye can see, creating a green sea that changes color according to seasons. Hoi An finally is a city that still preserves traces of the ancient Silk Road. In the evening, lanterns illuminate wooden bridges, while tailors work in shops that have remained unchanged for generations. Merchant houses show a style that blends Chinese, Japanese, and European elements, testifying to centuries of maritime trade. In Vietnam, time seems to flow differently. It's a country where nature has created incredible landscapes, where peace has won over war, and where you can find beauty even in the marks left by history. Greece. The place where Western civilization was born, a country that emerges from the sea through its islands, scattered in the Mediterranean Sea. In Athens, history is breathed everywhere. The famous Acropolis dominates the modern city, while in the ancient Agora Square, you can still imagine the great philosophers Socrates and Plato walking. In the characteristic Plaka district, restaurants serve local delicacies, while cats rest lazily among people. The island of Santorini is characterized by its distinctive white houses that climb volcanic cliffs, and its sunsets over the sea are so spectacular, they attract photographers from around the world. Meteora, instead, is where monasteries defy gravity. These enormous rock formations rise from the Thessaly plain, and sacred temples were built on their peaks in ways still unknown today. Monastery bells resound in the valley just as centuries ago, when only ropes and nets were used to reach these places. Delphi was considered the center of the ancient world, with the theater overlooking the Valley of the Muses, the Temple of Apollo, and surrounding hills covered with olive trees. The Greek islands, finally, are a mosaic of paradises in the Mediterranean. Mykonos pulses with life day and night, with its trendy clubs, exclusive beach clubs, and parties that last until dawn. Corfu, instead, enchants with its hidden beaches, like the spectacular Palio Castrizza and Canal d'Amour, with its unique rock formations. In Greece, philosophy was born in the streets. Each island tells a different story. And it's here that the rules of beauty that influenced all Western art were born. Chile. Between the Pacific Ocean and the Andes, a strip of land crosses all the planet's climates. Chile stretches for 4,000 kilometers, creating a natural laboratory where the world's driest deserts coexist with ancient glaciers. The Atacama Desert reveals a lunar landscape, with valleys tinged red and gold, while geysers explode in the dawn frost. Patagonia, in contrast, challenges the wind with Torres del Paine Park. Here, granite towers emerge from the steppe, while glaciers plunge into turquoise lakes. Condors glide on rising currents, observing guanacos grazing in windswept prairies. Easter Island preserves the secrets of the Moai. The monolithic statues stare at the horizon with enigmatic gazes, while Pacific waves crash on volcanic sand beaches. The Central Valley produces wines that compete with the world's best, with vineyards extending to the foot of the Andes. And finally, there is Santiago, the capital pulsing between modernity and tradition. The central market teems with life, while vendors offer freshly caught seafood. Moreover, Cerro San Cristobal offers a view of the city, with skyscrapers, colonial churches, and the Cordillera creating a permanent backdrop. In this nation, nature has created impossible contrasts. You can ski in the morning and surf in the afternoon, and the deserts even bloom once every decade. It's a place where the impossible becomes every day, where geography challenges imagination. Turkey. Extends between two continents, is a bridge between Europe and Asia through the Bosphorus. In Istanbul, mosques dominate the skyline with over 3,000 minarets. Cappadocia instead presents a lunar landscape of volcanic rocks, with over 200 underground cities carved into tuff. The rock formations, called fairy chimneys, rise dozens of meters into the sky. At Pamukkale, there are white limestone terraces where thermal water flows. Here, natural pools are arranged on 17 levels for 2,700 meters in length. Continuing on, the Aegean coast hosts Ephesus, one of antiquity's greatest cities, with the Roman theater that can hold 25,000 spectators. Mount Ararat finally reaches 5,137 meters in height, covered with permanent snow, and at its feet extend volcanic valleys and alpine lakes. Turkey is an ancient land where east meets west, a country of contrasts where mosques rise among skyscrapers, and where extinct volcanoes and underground cities guard stories of lost civilizations. Argentina. At the point where South America meets Antarctica, a nation extends through incredible landscapes. Argentina reveals its secrets through glaciers, turquoise lakes, prairies, and mountains. Patagonia, for example, challenges the southern winds. The Perito Moreno Glacier moves like a frozen river, while blocks of ice plunge into the lake with great thunder. Condors glide above Fitzroy, where granite walls emerge from the clouds. The Iguazu Falls instead plunge from 275 drops. Here, water creates rainbows in perpetual mist, while the Devil's Throat swallows entire rivers in an abyss of water and sound. The Pampas extends like a sea of grass, and gauchos ride through endless prairies, while cattle herds create black dots on the horizon. Buenos Aires finally pulses to the rhythm of tango. In the La Boca district, painted houses create an urban rainbow, while in San Telmo, dancers transform streets into stages. Bars preserve the Belle Epoque atmosphere, where poets and artists have shaped the city's soul. Argentina, therefore, is a land where extremes meet. A country where penguins swim in the same waters as whales, where permanent ice borders the desert, where each region tells a different story, but of the same immense territory. The Netherlands. In a land reclaimed from the sea, a people has created an entire country. The Netherlands is an engineering experiment that challenges nature itself, where canals and windmills tell of survival and innovation. Amsterdam develops in concentric circles of canals, with houses reflected in the water while bicycles cross bridges. In flower markets, tulips create floating rainbows, while polders demonstrate man's victory over the sea. The windmills of Kinderdijk continue to pump water as they did in the past, while sheep graze on lands that were once seabed. And then there's Giethoorn, the village that lives without roads. Indeed, the houses with thatched roofs can only be reached by boat, while footbridges connect these floating gardens. We can affirm, therefore, that the Netherlands is 1/3 below sea level. But precisely for this reason, water is not an enemy. Rather, it has become an ally, thanks to human ingenuity.